Woo! Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, The Magical Solution. My name is Lailani, and this is the podcast. This is how we grow. We are here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Excited once again to have one of our return guest authors, person that I truly adore. I own every single one of his books. I absolutely love this author, Ivo Dominguez Jr. Now, before I bring him on, let's read a little bit, just a smidge, about this man. All right. Now, he's been an active in the magical community since 1978, and he is one of the founders of the Keepers of the Holy Chalice, the first assembly of the Sacred Wheel Coven. He currently serves as one of the elders in the assembly, and Ivo is the author of several books, including The Four Elements of the Wise, which we did an interview with. So please go back to my channel and find that live because that was also amazing. Practical Astrology for Witches and Pagans, and many more. But in his mundane life, he has been a computer programmer, the executive director of an AIDS HIV service organization, and I'm so sorry, I dropped the little bio here. It just disappeared all of a sudden. That's so weird. Ivo, you want to finish that up for me, my man?
Sure. I mean,
it just disappeared on me.
I've done a lot of things over the years. I mean, I did those things. I also, on two separate chunks of time, had a metaphysical bookshop. I taught English as a second language for a while. I did 1 year where I made my living as an artist and basically painted and went to a bazillion conferences and shows. And so I keep reinventing myself, and here I am again.
I love it. And I think one of the things now Ivo, we're doing this whole series, the Witch's Sun series.
Yeah.
What sign are you?
Oh, I'm one of those evil sages.
No, I love Sages. You guys are so active and just ready to just go. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say
you just have to like, kind of like just reel it in sometimes.
But I think that's where that energy of just reinvention comes from. Just always on to the next thing, trying to figure it out, like that's so dope. But let's talk about your Sun series, your Sun Witch series. Why this series?
All right. Well, I have a secret agenda that's not really very secret, to try to encourage as many people as possible that do spiritual magical things to use the tools of astrology in their practice, however that may be. And part of that is because, I was trained by an astrologer. I've been practicing astrology since the 80s. So I've been around with it. And you know what? 90% of it that's taught is aimed at people that want to become astrologers. And that's not for everybody, for a lot of reasons. However, it is a really useful tool for self-growth, self-analysis, amping up whatever kind of spiritual or magical work you do. And I think that's something that everybody can learn enough of to make it useful. So the series, you don't have to know anything about astrology for it to be useful for you. So don't be daunted by it, because a lot of the books in astrology basically are so stuffed with jargon that you can't actually use them until you've studied for 10 more years.
Facts.
So it's meant to be. And then the second reason is, honestly, even if you don't do any astrology right now, I think if you are a person that wants to get in touch with the core of your spirit and your magic, the inner sun, your inner sun is your inner sun sign, and that's the starting point for you. There's a lot of planets that revolve in your chart and do their own thing, but this is the root of where you come from. So that alone is reason to do it. And if you want to learn more about astrology, the signs, you can read the other books in the series and pick up knowledge about the signs without it being such a heavy lift. The books are medium size. They're not going to break your back carrying them. And the chapters are short and absorbable, so you can actually digest.
They sure are. This book. So tonight's live is going to be on Virgo Witch, because I'm a Virgo, and
right?
Yes. But more so, going through this book, not only was it an enjoyable read, but I definitely felt like, holy crap, it's no one considers this very, very useful tool within your magic. And not only does nobody really consider it, but the way you broke it down was just so yes, it was juicy. And now I noticed too that with each of these books, you have
Yes,
a co-author. So
absolutely.
because they themselves are that sign and they're kind of like spearheading and organizing the
So,
whole.
yeah, so here's the thing. I'm an astrologer, which means I could write. Believe me, the hardest part was I can only write so many words for each book, and I had to leave room for everything else, right?
Right.
So I could have, but there is nothing like having lived experience. In other
Right.
words, I could observe as carefully as I possibly can, but I'm not a Virgo. So
Right.
each of the books has a second author that is of the sign. Even with the Sag book, there's a second author because they're focused on their life experience of being a Sag. And a lot of people find commonalities. So you have to have the lived experience, right?
Facts.
Because you can tell they can tell stories about this is how it played out in my life,
Right.
which brings it, so it's way past the idea of just now. What my job was to track down the 12 other authors, recruit them, and I had the outline, and I wrote writing prompts for each of the chapters so that they could, run in whatever direction they wanted to. But basically, there's a connective thread between each of the books because it has the same chapter headings, except the short pieces are all different. But the co-author stuff, and they are each had to answer or the questions or prompts that push them to hit the on button. And most
Love
of
it.
them aren't astrologers. There's only two other astrologer people that officially consider themselves astrologers, and that's Diotima, who's the Aries witch one, and Maria Wander, who's Capricorn witch. All the others are people that identify as magical people, spiritual people, but they don't think they're not astrologers per se.
Right. They're just that sign and they have some good info to contribute,
And,
which was
and
awesome. I
yeah,
noticed that in the book. I mean, they contributed everything from like recipes that a Virgo
yes,
might want to like a spell for cleansing that a
yeah,
Virgo would definitely, find
yep,
helpful. And it really just and also too what I loved the most is in the beginning because when you read any book, any astrology book about your sign is so yes, it's jarring, but it's also like, doesn't quite describe me, or I'm not like that. But
yeah,
in this particular book, you really, series, you took into consideration and you made sure that you let the reader know, look, not everything is going to perfectly, but here's what it looked like on overview. I swear to God, bro, like reading itself on paper, it was so stupidly accurate. It really was. Like this. I'm like, what? Let me ask you. So, why? I read in your book that you should have your natal chart, or you should have your at least some familiarity with your birth chart, and
mhm,
at bare minimum, at least know your moon and rising sign while you're going through this book for sure.
for
But
sure.
why the sun sign? Like, what is so witchy about the sun sign? Like, why
Easy.
that versus like the Chirion or any of these
any
other
any
types
any
of
number, or,
planets?
or Neptune, that's the one that's often thought of as your psychic sensitivity, or
Yes. So why? Why the
and there's
sun?
actually there's tons of little asteroids that are there's an asteroid named Toro, like
Yes,
like
exactly.
like the bull
Yes.
photo, and it actually is the one you look at to see how much telekinetic ability somebody has, how much push they can do with their magic. Anyway, but here's the thing: in all cases, sun's at the center. The sun's the source of light and energy. It's what warms and feeds. Honestly, life on Earth depends completely on it, right? The moon is lit up by the sunlight. The divine spark that lives within you, that's your sun. And your sun
Mm,
sign tells you the flavor of where the color of the texture of where that divine spark inside you. Now you can redirect that energy to do anything else, just like the heart pumps blood to every part of the body. But when you reach out to grab a hold of your divine spark and you try to move and raise energy, it's flowing through your sun, and your sun is your sun sign. So the more you
mhm.
embrace who you are as your sun sign, then the less at odds you are with yourself, and the more you allow your power to flow.
Got it.
And the less you
That does make
and the
sense.
less you fight yourself. The other thing with astrology, especially if you're relatively new to it, is you read a lot of stuff and you go, well, that's absolutely not me.
It's true.
It's
It's
true.
true.
It's true. And what I'm going to suggest is that if you are a Virgo, all the things, all the reasonable things, there's a lot of trash talk about all the signs.
It's
Realistically, and by the way, all 12 books, the aim was to be positive about each of them, right?
true. It's
Not,
true.
not flinch and say, hey, this is a thing that might cause you some trouble, but
But as a self-judging Virgo, because you know
bingo,
how hard we are on ourselves,
critical, so critical.
Thor,
Thumper,
your guy Thumper had
yeah,
he really made sure he put it in there that we were known for X, Y, and
oh
Z.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. But but the thing is, you got the whole package within you,
Mm,
but you choose to express or develop some of the traits and to repress and erase other traits,
right.
like
Right.
or moderate them. Like at the start, you asked me what sign, and I'm a Sag, and that means I know I like excess, and I know I don't know when I'm supposed to stop. Right? It's like, oh, I'll stay up another 2-3 hours to do whatever it is I want to do. It'll be fine. Or I can juggle 3,000 things at once. It'll be fine. So on the one hand, that gives me drive and stamina, but on the other hand, I've got to reel it in, right?
Yeah.
So in the same sense, I can, if you're a magical person, and I consider myself a witch, that's how I identify. You can summon or banish, call to you or dismiss things, including all your sun sign traits.
Mm.
They live within you, and they can serve you or harm you depending upon how you call upon them, just like almost any other kind of spiritual or magical things. A
Right.
lot of energy is neutral until you put it in use.
And then you take that and then you combine it with it's the influences of the moon and this and the rising and all these
Bingo.
other things in your chart that will make it a little bit more complicated, which is another reason why a lot of people get so overwhelmed when they try to
Right.
move through the spaces of astrology. But in your book, you really kind of focused more on just the moon, the rising. And so with that said,
Get you
what
started.
what are these why are these two particular ones so influential for a
Sure.
witch in
Sure.
their sign?
Sure. And I'll say that because you've probably seen a bazillion memes where people have a top 3 or top 4 in pictures that they use for depicting them, etc. And those are fun, though sometimes not accurate. But all right, let's go with the moon sign first. That's the easy one. Here's some two psychological reasons and two magical reasons. All right, the moon is the author of your life story. We are constantly telling ourselves a story about who we are and what different events in our life meant, and the tone of voice of that inner voice that tells the story of who you are. That's your moon sign.
Oh, he needs to get slapped around then because
There you go. My moon's in Scorpio, so I have to be.
oh my god. I believe my moon is in Taurus, I believe.
Oh,
And
another Earth sign, which makes it
he's so
harder.
mean to me.
But the point is, so for the story you tell yourself is the moon sign, and the story you tell yourself about whether or not you am I really psychic? Do I have, am I a healer? Can I do these things? All the stuff related to doubt lives there too when it comes to
Mhm.
those things. However, here's the other thing. The moon is the astral plane, the dreamscape, the worlds nearby. They're just on the other side of the border between life and death. So your moon sign tells me something about the nature of your aura, the energy around you, the way that energy behaves is related to the sign and its element. So that
Mm.
controls. So, for example, if somebody, I have a watery moon, I have a Scorpio moon, right?
Uh-huh.
All right. The good thing I've got my fire from my sun, but water moon signs tend to absorb more of the emotional debris and stuff in their environment.
Right. Yeah, that makes
You, you,
sense.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, that means when I'm in ritual with people or I'm working with people or doing a reading for somebody, it's easier for my aura to kind of like take the shape of the container and flow and connect with them, so that it makes it easier to do certain kinds of work. But I also have to do a lot of cleanup.
Mm.
So there's a lot of reasons why the moon sign is connected in a real direct way to how your magic plays nicely or not so nicely, depending upon, like, if I were an air sign moon, for example, I'd say, well, air needs to become still, then all the dust and debris falls out and hits the earth. But until you be quiet, it's going to just be a whirlwind of sand in your eyes.
Right. I love that. I love that. And it's interesting because when we talk about magic, when we talk about witchcraft, when we talk about how we do our work,
Yeah,
one of the main things that elders will say is that our magic is driven by our emotion, and
absolutely.
the power behind it. There needs to be an emotional sort of propeller or fuel system. And yeah, so getting a good understanding of your moon sign and its relationship to your sun sign is such a
Mhm.
powerful tool in your magic for sure.
And
Now, what
then
about your rising?
I'm a Sag rising. I've got
Holy shit, bro.
yeah. And my Mercury's in Sag, my Venus is in Sag, my Saturn's in
Oh my
Sag.
god.
My Taurus is in Mars. I've got a Mars Taurus, so that helps.
So
Anyway,
in relation
but
to our magic, would you consider the rising sign almost like the mask that you put on for your magic, or are we looking at something totally
oh,
different?
it's all those things. And now, all right, let's go with the idea of the mask, which is one of the first places people go with the rising
Yeah.
sign. All right, it is like that, but anybody who knows magic of any kind knows, you know what? Masks are used for a lot of really powerful rituals,
Facts.
right? No, it's yeah. So that if you understand your rising sign, you can also understand and choose which mask you're wearing in a better way. Not just in
Mm.
terms of personality or how you interact with other people, but also if you work with particular powers or presences or beings, it also gives a clue of which masks of them, which faces of those divine beings you can work with better. There's another thing is, so so the rising sign is also like sunglasses or rose-colored glasses, depending. You look through your rising to observe the world.
Okay. All right, things are starting to make sense.
So you're looking through
I
your rising sign. That's think of it as a window. You're looking out on the window, but it's not clear glass. Every sign's got its own particular tint to it.
I'm a Scorpio rising.
Man, so you notice all the dark shit. Pardon the
I notice it all. And then you have the Virgo judge on the inside just
word.
judging everything.
No, all right, but here's the plus side. You're probably good. It's spotting curses or spotting a negative
Yes,
energy that needs to be unraveled.
very much so.
You know,
And very good at getting rid of it too.
and also finding the truth when something's been hidden.
Yes.
So I mean, there's
Like,
plus
don't lie to
sides.
me. I'll
There's
see
plus
it
sides.
yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, but there's plus sides to all of them. And the
Yeah.
challenge is, it's just like, if you're aware of a challenge, then it could become part of the solution. To name the show, right? So if you can figure out why, but the rising sign is how others see you. When people meet you, they meet your rising sign first. And
Okay.
then when they get to know you well enough, then they okay, I'm now introduced to their sun, I'm now introduced to their moon, and bit by bit you get to know them. But they meet the rising sign first. You see them through your rising sign, so you got to account for that. And also, the rising sign is the shape that we wear, and that could be the role that, like I'm in a different headspace if I'm doing a reading for somebody. I'm in a different headspace if I'm running a ritual, but the
Mhm.
mask changes.
Love that.
The other bit is, remember, your rising sign, whatever sign that is, that was how you entered the world.
The rising sign
All
is
right,
how
so
do I enter the versus sun being.
the sun is
Hold
the
on.
core.
Say that again?
All right, so think of the sun as the core of your being. It's where your divine spark is, right?
Uh-huh.
When we came out of our moms, whether in my case it was a C-section. And actually, I was born on the day of Mars, and C-section in the middle of the Cuban Revolution, so it was like definitely Mars stuff happening. But the rising sign is kind of like the door, the portal that opened for the sun to enter into your life. The rising sign is whatever sign was rising in the east at the time of your birth.
Mm.
So it tells you something about how you entered the world, which may give you also clues about some of your life purposes.
Interesting. Wow, you're blowing my shit, especially about your honestly about your birth as well too. I mean, like you just came in with the war, like the you came in with the knife, man, just ready to
I
go.
did. Oh, it was my birth story is dramatic. I mean,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. But so I have a question here
sure,
from actually there's two questions
awesome.
from the same person. They have slightly different things. So we're
Mhm.
talking here about the planetary squares and or intelligences when we're talking
Oh,
about the moon and sun.
yeah,
Do
yeah,
you
yeah,
utilize that at all in these books or
yeah.
no?
I okay, in these particular books, I don't work with the squares, but I do take it, and I don't work with the planetary intelligences. However, we do introduce the idea of each of the 12 signs should be thought of as a being, a power, a spirit that can be called upon. And indeed, there's a ritual in each book that's about calling upon the spirit of, like, there's this Spirit of Virgo guidance ritual. There's one in each book, but the idea is the 12 signs are the 12 forms of human folly and human wisdom. They
Mm,
are the 12 flavors of human consciousness, and they are full-fledged spirits that can be called upon and worked with. So I do work with those in the book. My Practical Astrology for Witches and Pagans does contain a chapter about the planetary squares, or the magic squares people, and how to use them for work, as well as the seals. So, but
I'll
here's what
make
I'm
sure
going to
to I'll make sure to
say.
tag that.
Yeah, but I'm going to say this. I'm pretty much an animistic person in that I believe that everything is alive, everything has spirit, everything has soul. Right. Okay. Which means that all these beings are real. And there are more goddesses, gods, divine beings, spirits out there than we can possibly count, and more than we've ever had any mythologies for. And there's plenty of stories and mythologies out there, right? But if you think for a moment of how many thousands of years and how many millions of people have thought about each of the signs and each of the planets and contributed their 2 cents of energy and emotion and essence to create and feed, they're basically being fed, right? Uh, in effect, every time that people work with the planets or the signs, they might as well be putting offerings on an altar to them.
Right. Right.
So they're powerful. And the other thing I hope people start doing is working more directly with the spirits that are the signs and the spirits that are the planets. Though I will say the spirits that are the signs are they're how about this? They are closer to us than the planetary spirits. So they are more likely to understand what you're trying to request or trying to do.
Right.
The planetary spirits are high in the power end of things and less fuzzy, warm, and cuddly.
I
And
feel that.
I'm not saying the signs are either, but at least they know what it is to be human to a degree.
And speaking of the signs and these sign spirits, so we're not talking about like literal crabs or like literal fish or
No,
literal scales.
no,
We're talking about energies. So with
yeah.
that said, why do I get the virgin? Like, what's up with the
Oh,
virgin?
it shouldn't be just because it isn't.
Okay.
Well, I mean, all right. So let's break it down a couple of different ways. Um, the goddess, and there's lots of lost goddesses in the sense of their stories, didn't survive into modern times in a full way. But here's what we know, or what we think we know about the goddess that is Virgo. So in a lot of ways, she was like an earlier version of Athena or Minerva, a goddess of agriculture and civilization, and teaching people how to, build houses and grow crops and have laws and kind of try to be nice to each other. And she kept doing it and doing it, and humans kept doing stupid human things.
God, that
And
sounds about
and
right.
and then eventually she was like, I'm done, and asked and was rewarded with Zeus and company pulling her up and making her a constellation in the heavens. It's okay, dear. You don't have to deal with those messy humans anymore.
Oh my God, loose. Seriously, take me up all
Right.
day.
Right. No, but the thing is, Virgos have this thing where on the one hand they really want to get in there and make the world better, and on the other hand it's like, ew, humans. And both
Like,
things
why
are
do y'all
really
gotta be
true.
so gross?
Why do you have
Why
to
do
be
y'all?
right? Right. Right. But another symbol for Virgo that is also equally true is a unicorn.
Wait, I have never ever heard of that before. What?
Yep.
Why?
Why?
Who?
Okay. Let's think of what a unicorn is. It is completely connected to the life of the world. It is immortal. It is eternal. Its horn, it can heal you if it touches you. It is purity incarnate, right?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the signs have alternate things, just like, all right, like Scorpio, right? Scorpio, most people think of just the scorpion, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you pull the world card out of your tarot deck, you'll see that there's an eagle that represents Scorpio in the world card.
Shut up, that's true.
Why?
Oh my
All right,
gosh.
because when a Scorpio is focused on the earth plane, it moves around, it scuttles like a scorpion. Its eyes are directly in front, looking for food, preparing to defend itself. When a scorpion is moving in a different, higher level of consciousness, they're like the eagle in flight that can see the whole landscape, sees the little mouse or whatever it's going to go for, and can stoop down and get it. And then the third level up is usually represented as either a phoenix or a dove, depending upon your religious background, because Scorpio is ultimately about that death, rebirth, and transition to a higher form thing, right? So all the signs have multiple things, but it's just popular to think of them in terms of, this is a little glyph and this is the piece of jewelry, and Virgo the
Yeah.
Virgin. But I will remind people also, Virgin back in the day when that was named didn't mean anything about whether or not you were in a relationship with anyone. It meant that you were in charge of your own life. Virgin.
Say it.
That's true. I mean, and the virgin in the early sense of the word just meant a woman who was actually on her own.
And probably burned at the stake for it. Yep. Mhm.
Well, or kept at a temple at the Ceres or something,
Right.
Yeah, but the point is, all the signs have multiple faces, and actually, the Cancer crab one,
Yeah.
if you pop it back in time a little bit, so we're looking at the way that the Egyptians drew it, it was a scarab, which
Wow.
is which
Yep.
it's still got that crustacean thing, but the scarab implies this idea of rolling the sun. What does a Cancer energy all about? Nurturing and keeping the world together, keeping
Yes.
the home front together, or history. Cancers love to preserve history, preserve tradition.
Wow. But
Anyway,
it's
yeah.
also weird because my mom is a Cancer, so now my head is just going somewhere else entirely. But like aren't they also very like not prissy and like high class and elegant, but they don't like yucky things. So like a dung beetle, it almost feels like counterintuitive in that sense. You know what I mean?
It is, except that from the Egyptian perspective, that dung beetle was the representation of Earth, of the big scarab in the sky that rolled the sun across the sky every day.
Wow.
But
This is
it's
so
a little
amazing.
science weirdness about dung beetles, scarabs, that's actually pretty cool. They have sensors on their back, so that at night they navigate by using the Milky Way as their directional guidance.
No way.
Seriously.
Evo, listen, we came on here to talk about Virgo Witch. You went on. We are
You
so
went on
is
a run.
all of this? No, I love it. I can't. I want to keep going. But is all of this in your other book, the other astrology book, the one that's a
Uh,
little bit more in depth?
it, it has some of those things, but realistically, I'd have to write several more to
Get on it.
get on it. Right? But one of the other, I will say another thing about the Virgo energy that people don't actually get. So the element is earth, right?
Yeah.
But it's mutable earth, changeable earth. And people
We've heard
automatically
this
go,
before. We've
yeah,
heard the cardinal, we've heard the fixed, we've heard the mutable.
yeah,
If you can just kind of
yeah,
break
yeah,
that
yeah.
down a little bit,
Sure,
what does
sure,
that
sure.
mean?
All right. I'll do it. So you've got four elements, and then you've got three. Think of them as the three primary colors or the three basic modes of those elements. So
Yes.
cardinal is boom, you burst into being. It's the power of creation. It's what pushes seeds up out of the ground and the sap out of the ground. It's what makes everything jump and continue to live. Um, Fixed is not immobile. It's about keeping it together. So, for example, if you're standing on one leg, keeping your balance, that's the fixed modality. If your body is trying to keep the same blood temperature and heart rate right now, that's also the fixed modality. It's about the balance. And then mutable is about changing, ending, dissolving, transforming from one thing to the next. And every season begins with one of the cardinal signs, becomes completely itself in the fixed sign, and then begins to transition to the next season in the mutable. That's why spring
Mm.
is Aries, because it's fire, cardinal fire. But the thing of each of them, by the way, that's why there are 12 signs, not 13. Never will be
Say
13.
yes.
Never, ever, ever.
Thank you.
There are plenty of other constellations out there, and some of them are in the right general zone above or below the line of the zodiac. By the way, the zodiac is the signs are the ones that are part of the path of the sun across the sky. If the
Right.
sun doesn't cross over them, then they're not in the zodiac. But regardless, there's 4 elements times 3 modalities, 12 signs. Unless
Yes.
you can't make new elements or modalities without breaking a whole lot of other things as well. So you can't do that. But mutable means changeable. I'm a Sag, which means I'm mutable fire. My fire can go from being the tiniest little ember up to a tower of flame that touches the sky, right? And it can shrink down and be. Virgo is the same thing for Earth. Virgo can change, grow, adapt, and in any direction that it wants to. It has an idea of what it wants to do very clearly, but life is all about adaptation, and that is what mutable Earth is about. It's also why you can figure out how bits of different things fit together. This piece fits
Yeah.
with this piece, fits with this piece, because it's mutable Earth, changeable Earth. So
Okay, so
yeah,
here's where, I always get that little thing of like, well, that doesn't describe me. When everyone talks about this idea of Virgo being like this perfectionist, this very like, you know, just organized, very I say to myself, yeah, but I thrive in chaos. Like I love movement, I love to feel the change. I'm like the wind in that sense.
okay.
And so I'm like, is that where it's coming from? Is it coming from that mutable energy, or is it
It
coming
or is it
from the
coming from
fact that Mercury is my ruler? Talk about it,
well,
baby.
okay, and Mercury, and now I'll get back to the Mercury in a second, but look at it this way. Um, at the same time that you are, okay, Virgo, think lots of plants and grain and cereal all around, right?
Mhm.
All the imagery. Okay, things grow best in what? Healthy soil that's a mixture of everything.
Mm.
So there's a Virgo that focuses on the heavens and the sky and the idea, and then there's a Virgo that focuses on what's happening on the world in front of them.
Right.
Back to the origin story of this goddess that was the archetype or model for Virgo. All right, it is messy to teach people this is how you plow fields and raise crops.
Oh,
It is
so messy.
it is messy to teach people, hey, this is how you make laws and how you try to have systems of justice, right? So
This is how not to be a dick.
right,
It's messy.
the thing is, all the actual work is messy.
Yeah.
But the Virgo, like I have a friend who's an editor, and they're Virgo, and you know what? That helps them look at the words and sort things through and find what fits or doesn't fit the pattern that was or the goal of the book, for example. But focusing on the idea of where that's the Mercury part. Focusing on the idea of it is one thing, but the actual doing means getting your hands in the muck.
Mm.
Now, I'm going to say something about Mercury, but then I'm going to say Mercury, the planet, is not one and the same as Mercury, the god.
Okay, see, I always got confused with that. I will say every astrology book tends to conflate the two,
And they're not.
and they're not.
They're not.
Okay.
I mean, so if you think of Mercury does have Mercury, the god, has Mercury traits. So, for example, movement, communication, fast thought, yada yada. That's all stuff that fits in both categories. But Mercury, the planet, is actually a bigger category. So that I'm going to say Mercury, the planet, is like another reality, another dimension where Mercury, the god, would feel comfortable living, but there's also a lot of other gods and goddesses and beings living there too. So it's a much broader category. Mercury is all thought, all communication, all exchange between two or three or however number of beings are involved. Mercury is close observation. Now, I will say where they have things in common is that Mercury was the messenger of the gods, among other things, as was Hermes and Thoth, and basically, I'm going to consider them cousins of each other, for lack of a better way of thinking of it, because I think they're separate, but they sure have a lot in common, right?
Right.
I'm not going to lump them and say all gods are one god, not when it comes to these beings. However, I am going to say that Mercury, the god, does show up as showing the following trait: commerce. It's not immediately evident, but if you think about it, the first people that wanted to barter, I've got a bunch of fruit, you've got some grain there, and they don't have a language in common yet. They're probably going to end up pointing back and forth and figuring out a way to communicate that this for that. So
Wow.
so that what allows your mind to have impact or contact with the world is Mercury.
Oh my gosh.
And that could be a conversation, that could be barter, or that could be looking at a sunset and deciding you're going to write a poem about it.
Yes. Wow. Now here's the thing with that though. So, wow. Oh my gosh. When it comes to the planets versus the the ruling, so in your book you focus
Now,
much more on the planet.
on the planets, the ruling planets for each of the signs, yeah.
Right. But it was brought up a little bit about the
Huh?
Mercury and these kind of liminal
Yeah,
spirits that
yeah, yeah.
tend to be associated with these planets.
Because you can call on them.
Mhm.
I mean, you can. We could probably have done a whole book doing nothing but exploring all gods, goddesses, angels, archangels, lower reaches, fill in the blank for all the other ancestors, anybody that fits the category of Virgo or Mercury, for example. And we
Wow, yeah, that'd be a big fat book.
we'd have a whole book of nothing but that, and that's okay. But what I'm going to say is, and I think there's a theme in all 12 books. You are not limited by the first slice of knowledge you get about these.
Yes.
You don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't stick yourself in a box. However, you can call upon Mercury or Hermes or Thoth, and they'll probably, hey, I think that might be one of my children. I better go check on it. So they may have a different connection to the beings associated with your ruling planet. I'm not saying that they automatically are going to, take your call, but
but you might have a leg up just because of the where you were born and all that.
You're gonna go, okay, there's something familiar about them.
Now, speaking of Mercury specifically,
Yeah.
we have the question about retrogrades. Now, here's one of those moments where I also say, that doesn't seem to fit my bill, because whenever Mercury's in retrograde, it fucks everybody up except me. I seem to have like the best luck during retrogrades, and I'm wondering what that's all about, or if it's much more specific to my natal chart that needs to be read in order to figure out. But is that normal for all Virgos, or do Virgos tend to have that issue just like everyone else with
it depends on your whole
retrogrades?
it depends on your whole package of what
Right,
else
I
is going
figured.
on. I have Mercury retrograde in my birth chart, and it usually doesn't hit me that badly, because I think it's kind of like I got vaccinated by being born with Mercury retrograde, right? I have a certain amount of resistance to how it plays, but I think it's a little bit more than that. Um, everybody's heard some variation of the old thing that carpenters say: measure twice, cut once,
Facts.
right? So when Mercury's retrograde, if you're moving faster than you should, it's going to get you.
Gotcha.
So part of it is how you live. It's also about exposure. For example, I have a friend who he works for a very large bank, and he's one of the programmers that keeps their ATM system alive and working and talking across international boundaries, right? So nobody wants his stuff to mess up because
It could be a problem.
he does magic, he goes slow, he does everything imaginable because pretty much not under his control. Many times the parent company has said, we're about to install all these new software updates during a Mercury retrograde, and he's like, so and things usually go terribly wrong, but he's prepared for them to go terribly wrong because he's made sure that everything at his end was as correct as it could be. So then
Right. So if it goes wrong, it's definitely a situation of chance.
But
Yeah.
there are other things like editing goes, rethinking things or reanalyzing things is actually easier during Mercury retrograde.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
But
It gives you an opportunity to kind of slow down in a way.
and review.
Yeah.
So if it depends on what you use it for. It's kind of like people say the same thing about moon void, of course, which is a little bit more technical. But in the calendars, you'll see moon and the little V/C on it. And for anything from a couple hours to almost, a day and a half or whatever, the moon is void, of course. And they tell you, oh, don't do anything important there. Well, that depends. So quick way of describing moon of void, of course. And I know this will cease to have validity because there are fewer and fewer cars that require a stick shift anymore.
Oh, we going way back. Throw it back.
In a few more days. In a few more days, I'm 65. So it's not like I'm a spring chicken. So the deal is you need to go into neutral to change gears in an old style car, right? Or else the gears grind and it's really horrible. Or the idea of if you don't, or another way of looking at it is you have to be going at the right speed to get on or off a ramp, an exit or entrance ramp safely. Not too fast, not too slow. Okay. Well, people say during a moon void, of course, the moon is basically had every aspect with other planets it's going to have. It's done. It's kind of like it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You don't get off to work till 5. You've cleared all your email. You've cleared everything else. You have nothing to do but sit in the chair and twiddle your thumbs and maybe sneak a peek at your phone to see, making sure nobody else has noticed that you're doing nothing. Moon void, of course, the moon is off duty. It is
checked
not
out.
It's checked out. It's not going to start any new work until it moves into the next sign, so it can start making aspects again. So people say, "Oh, don't do anything then." Well, yes and no. Don't sign a contract that day because guess what? They're going to wriggle out of it, or something is going to go sour with it. However, what if you are trying to do something on the down low, like, I don't know, you're turning in your taxes and you don't want to be audited. You file them during the moon void, of course.
Oh, Ivo, right around tax season, baby. You are so brilliant.
But there's another one. Let's say you're trying to do past life work. It's easier to do it when the moon is void, of course, because the moon rules the way that we experience our internal consciousness of time. Yeah, she's off duty. So counseling sessions and breakthroughs in counseling sessions sometimes go better during Mercury retrogrades or moon void, of course, for the same reason. The thing that can cause a problem also always has its own benefits.
So it's really one of those things where astrology, just overall, and we'll get back to the book in a moment, but astrology overall is really just like, what you put on it, because there's these systems, there's these sort of rules, if you will, but But these rules are flexible based on your perspective,
Oh,
it seems like.
there's a certain amount of flexibility. How about this? It's about finesse.
Finesse. Oh, love it.
You know, I actually told somebody this story earlier today. When Jim and I first got together, dear friend of mine did a chart comparing our two charts. Oh, it's you guys are going to have a great 6 months. It'll be passionate. It'll be amazing, and then it's going to blow up and it'll be done.
Oh no.
I looked and I was already an astrologer, so I followed her reasoning why she would say that, and next February we will have been together 45 years, so
Woo.
it's a little bit more than 6 months, right? But here's the deal: the reason there are places where there's conflict in our chart, but the big one is our charts are set up in a way that I see absolutely everything that is wrong with them, and they see everything that is wrong with me. Every little, and I can't hide any mistakes, and he can't hide any mistakes. Now, that could have been, oh yeah, fun until it's not fun. Or, said out of love and said out of caring, pointing out somebody else's flaws and helping them through. So over the years, we've rubbed off a lot of each other's sharp edges because of that. So now,
Wow.
if I had made different choices and he had made different choices, oh yeah, 6 months in, boom.
Yes.
But it's about choice, and astrology does not take away free will, does not take away choice. In fact, I'm going to argue that the more you know astrology, the more you are accountable and responsible to make better choices, because you know what's influencing you. And if you know what's influencing you, you should be able to say, "Hey, that's something I want to do," or "No, that's the wrong direction for me."
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I have an apprenticeship program coming up really soon, and one of the main requirements of this program is to make sure you have your natal chart printed out, make sure and now I am now going to add these books onto this requirement so that they can kind of hold them side to side, because I think it's necessary. I really do. The way that this book and all of these books are broken down, it's you get a little bit of who you are, you get a little bit of the herbs and planets and crystals and types of magic and all the things that might best fit within the category of your sign. You get its relationship to moon and sun. You get all the personal stories from other Virgos and their recipes and their ideas and their ways of cleansing and binding and this and that. I mean, it is absolutely phenomenal. And if you're doing that with each sign, I mean, it's chef kiss, and I think it should be a requirement for every new adept to really kind of dive deep into their sign, but in like a witchy way.
Yeah,
in a fun witchy way.
Because most of the books on astrology don't talk about magic.
No, they do not. It's so hardcore.
Yeah,
it's too hardcore.
It's and the other bit with if you look at each of the signs and whatever your sun sign is, and it is a game plan for how to do better in this life. I believe in reincarnation. You don't have to. I believe in reincarnation, but you don't have to for the following to make sense.
Right.
It matters what you do in this life. And astrology gives you clues as to how you might reach more of your goals and potentials, and how you might reduce some of the pain is necessary, challenge is necessary, struggle is necessary, but then there's also a lot of it that's unnecessary. And trying to figure out which parts you can avoid. Surely, and don't have to worry about ever being lazy. If you're actually doing any work, there'll be plenty of hard, terrible things to get through.
Facts.
That's just part of the work. But there's also a lot that you end up doing that has nothing to do with you and your work, and has everything to do with random chaos or snap judgments made at the wrong time. So, and let's add up every human being on the planet that's halfway asleep at the wheel. Halfway asleep at the wheel. And here's the thing. If we are awake and present and being the fullest version of by the way, you can think of your chart as being like your energy DNA. It's kind of like getting your, giving your little swab and sending it off to 23andMe or Ancestry or whoever it is that you've used. It gives you a snapshot, and or especially if the ones that do the health stuff or traits as well. You know what? Um, they are telling you these are the things that you've started with. These are the things that will always be with you. It does not tell you how you're going to rearrange them or how you're going to make use of them.
Mm.
I used to use LPs, and I can still say this for a while longer. So imagine that your chart is like a vinyl disc, a vinyl LP or a CD, old school, or you can put it on a flash drive and it can be an MP3. I don't care. And you plug it in to play it in a cheap ass little thing with tiny little speakers that you can fit on the desk, and the song sounds okay-ish, and you sort of recognize it. You pull that little thing, that vinyl LP or that USB drive or whatever it is, and you plug it into the system that has, these amazing speakers and amazing filters and all the things that an audiophile's dream, right? Doesn't even sound like the same song. You can pick out the instruments, what's on the left. That voice is like 3 steps behind the lead singer. You can hear the whole thing. So here's the deal. When you're born, you basically have the cheap little speakers on the desktop, and then if you evolve and grow over time, you may still have the same song, but it sounds like a different song.
I love that. I love that analogy. I really do. Oh my goodness. Ivo, do you offer like natal chart readings and birth chart readings?
I do, though you'll never find me saying that on my website. And I'll tell you why. I have been doing this for quite a few years, which means I have a lot of people whose charts I do every year because they want I want, on my birthday or at the beginning of the year, yada, yada. So between my writing, the covens I'm teaching in, and everything else, and my backlog of existing clients, I don't advertise.
I hear you. I
But
hear
if
you.
somebody wants me to do their birth chart, they can email me, and I'll say, this is how long it'll be until I get to you, and if that sounds reasonable to you, cool. And if not, I just can't do it. All right, except for and do not send me sob stories, because I will suss you out and figure out if I should even bother. But
Yeah.
I do emergency readings for people, but that's mostly people that I already know.
Okay. All
And I
right. Good
also
to
tell,
know.
but I also tell people you can't have a reading with me because you've had one too recently. Because whether it's cards, whether it's astrology, whether it's pure psychism or whatever, man, the minute people start living their life by one reading to the next, then
Oh,
it's gone in the toilet.
I've had to do it too, baby. People are addicted to readings. It's
Not
crazy.
good.
It's like give it some time to marinate, bro. Like
Make some choices and see if something changes before you come back and ask again.
seriously. But
We used to,
Evo, it was an absolute pleasure talking
it
to you.
was
It's like it just went by so fast.
it did go by really, really fast.
But I will say this to the audience out here, definitely get your sun sign book. And honestly, me personally, I'm going to get all 12 because now that I've seen
As a study
the
guide.
Oh, it's a study
Yeah,
guide. It
yeah.
really truly is, and it gives you so much very juicy information, but done so like layman's terms, very digestible. And I'm gonna recommend that you get all 12. And I'll definitely put the links. I'll just keep updating this YouTube particular video with each link for each book as they come out. And I think you've already got 4 out, right? There's 4 that's already out, or 5?
Oh, I think it's up to like 8.
Okay. So we're almost there. Got 4 to
And
go.
actually, yeah, and actually, I think Sag just dropped for pre-order. Um, you
There we
know,
go.
so yeah, and pre-orders help. I know people say, "Oh, I'm going to have to wait months," but you know what? The pre-order convinces the publisher to keep them in print.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's on it, you guys. Show some support. This was an amazing live. Now, before I let you go, I know that this project has been taking up all of your time. Is there new on the horizon? Is there anything you'd like to let the audience know that you're up to?
I'm writing
Anything
two
you'd
other
like to
books.
offer?
Writing two other
Two other
books.
books outside of the
Oh
sun
yeah,
sign
yeah,
books?
unrelated to this. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god.
Gadgets like excess. Remember.
Oh my gosh, don't hurt yourself. Are we
Yeah.
allowed to know what they are? Are we allowed to know
One's
yet?
about it's the flip side to the psychic development book I wrote, except it's all the active skills. It's about how to raise, move, shape, manage, control energy. So it's that kind of book. And then
So
another
another requirement for my apprenticeship
and
program.
then
Got
another
it.
book that's kind of like I'll figure out who will want it, but it's basically I've made a list of like 30 things. I'll narrow it down. Might be keep it at 30. Think of it as excerpts from my book of shadows. It'll be recipes, rituals, techniques that normally I teach to covens, but I gotta throw it in a book.
Ah, oh my god.
So
Oh wait, I'm already I'm so excited. You do understand that you are definitely one of my favorite
I
favorite
appreciate that.
authors. I own every single book that you have. I adore your writing style. You're so brilliant. So yeah, literally anything you pump out, I'm getting and I'm telling everyone else to get. Um Are there any last words for our audience with regards to, sun witchery and your sun sign and just like kind of taking the trek down this path? Is there any last ththings you want to say to the
It can,
audience?
don't rule it out just because you've tried astrology before and you couldn't. It's not like that. It really isn't. It could be as simple as just starting doodling the glyph for your sun sign and knowing that it's actually a powerful symbol, not just a little bit of squiggles. It's power. It's your own special rune. It's your own call sign. Tune into that energy. Just doodling that for a while is enough to juice you up.
Ivo, thank you so so much for tonight, and to all these people who showed up in the live. We have a lot here.
Awesome.
Lavetta, Rob. There's just Samantha, so many people. Plus the people that are going to be watching on the replay. Thank you
Right.
guys so much. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Be here every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for some more amazing content like this. But most importantly, remember, this is how we grow, guys. Have a good night.